Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I'm your host, the one and only Joey Railroads. I'm here with my buddy Adam. Adam, how are you doing, man?
I always ingest a packet of mysterious white powder before every show. I came up in the Miami Dolphins organization, so I'm good to go.
Yeah, there you go. That'll always keep you going.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'll finally be glad when this damn humidity breaks.
Yeah, it's getting back at us for the friendly August we had. So
yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how freaking humid was it like 10 o'clock at night the other night, man. That was sickening.
Yeah, it was like you were in like the swamp in like New Orleans or something.
So when I opened up the car door and the window immediately steamed up, I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah.
I just went, I was like, oh, God.
Absolutely. All right, before we get started, I got to run through some stuff. You can find us on our social media pages at facebook.com/American Sports Connection or on Twitter at AMSportsCon, CONPOD. And if you're not listening on YouTube, you can find us on youtube.com/EaglesFan0683. All of our wrestling related content is on B Plus Player Radio at B Plus Player, if I can talk, on Twitter. And don't forget to check out our sponsors over at the Squared Circle magazine at TSC Wrestling Mag. Use promo code ASCPOD for 20% off your next order. All right, now that I can take a breath, for those that aren't aware, before we get into the games this past week, there was one kind of, I don't know if you call it a major trade, but kind of significant in name value, is Adrian Peterson was traded from the Saints to Arizona.
Yeah, and Arizona did release Chris Johnson to make full room on the roster.
I think they only gave up a conditional pick, which means it'll probably be either a 6th or a 7th round pick.
It ended up being a 6-rounder. I think they finalized that somehow.
Okay.
Yeah. And
we talked about this earlier. I think it's probably the best situation he was probably going to be able to find.
I mean, yeah, we were throwing some teams around, and if there's a team that can kind of get the wagon wheel put back on and get into the playoffs, that's probably it. I mean, the Giants are finished, and there really aren't too many teams that we could think of that were in the market for a good, first down, second down, short yardage back that really can't catch the ball at all. So, yeah, this works out pretty well. And I heard the Saints have been shopping him since the Monday night debacle, so they were ready to move on.
Yeah, well, I think it's best for both parties.
Yeah, I mean, he was never going to fit in there, and they would just be hampering themselves by trying to force him to fit. And I don't see him as being a particularly pleasant fellow when things aren't going his way. So, somebody was bound to get hit by a tree branch eventually. So,
Yeah, that's
but
funny.
yeah, I think it's not bad. I can't say that I feel like it's going to work necessarily. But like somebody said on the ESPN today, it was kind of funny. Well, they couldn't exactly get on the phone and find themselves a center, two new guards. So this was the next best thing.
Well, and let's face it, Adrian Peterson is used to running in front of shit offensive lines.
Yeah, and he changes the line of scrimmage a little bit. And I mean, Johnson was only averaging 2.9 yards a carry or something like that, and nobody was offering any respect to.
Yeah, no. Well, the only reason he
attack.
even got signed to come back was because David Johnson got hurt.
Right, and so they were thin, and yeah, even though there's been some talk about Johnson, December maybe trying to rush him, not rushing, but maybe really trying to push himself to get back on, or a little bit after Thanksgiving and stuff like that. And there's actually murmurs within the Cardinals organization that he might not play at all this year. So I think they kind of reality checked themselves and said, look, this is looking bad right now. And if he's not going to come back, even if he were going to come back, this could be a lost cause if we don't do something, if we don't make a move quickly. So they made a move.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's get into the games from this past week. This past Thursday night, we had the Patriots surviving in Tampa Bay, 19-14.
Yeah, Tampa Bay is really going to look back on this and say, God, we really let one slip away here. I mean, you had Brady, he kind of JT Smith the touchdown in the end zone. I mean, he did end up catching one later. But it seems to me that Jameis Winston and Deshaun Jackson haven't found a rhythm on the long ball yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to look back on this game and kind of rue that they let it slip away. I know a lot of people, and it's true that the Patriots defense, did play better, and Winston didn't throw any interceptions in that game, I don't think. So that's good. I mean, against the Patriots defense that usually can get something off of usually steal something from a younger quarterback, and he had thrown a couple picks, in each of the first couple games. So there were concerns there, but and then the third downs too. We've been talking a lot this year about third down defense and how they were letting New England convert those third downs, and Tampa Bay's problems with the kicking game, which they're certainly not the only the team in the league that's having place kicker issues that they might want to take a very hard look at before this is all over with. But yeah, I mean, to lose a game like that at home to New England, where you really felt like New England kind of was wiggling them into a position where they could have won that game. I felt bad, but I think a lot of it, like we were talking about Thursday night, we were chatting, Tampa Bay's not one of those teams that has learned the intangibles of winning games yet.
They're still a young team.
Yeah, they're more inclined to find ways to lose those games than to find ways to win, right?
I agree. It was just and kind of Brady and them survived on, their grit.
Do you think it's more... was this game more of a sign of New England is going to bounce back, or was this just more of a sign of they just kind of stumbled their way to a win Thursday night?
I feel like they kind of stumbled their way through, and they have a favorable schedule here and there, but I mean, for me, I have to see them be like the wounded dog and dead before I'll believe they're done. You know what I mean? Hello? I really don't trust New England. They're always kind of just hiding waiting to strike, because they play in the fucking AFC East, which is like the weakest division. No disrespect to the Bears, the Bills, Jets, and Dolphins, but they haven't been able to compete for years and make a legitimate contender. Are you there, Adam? Hello? Oh, you gotta love live. Bear with me, everybody. Yep, AFC. Hello?
Yep, I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me.
Oh, that's weird. No, yeah. Like Lance is saying in the chat, with the AFC East, they played in a cupcake division where it's been almost 6 easy wins every year.
Pretty much, yeah, because it's that division's never really been in doubt.
And I'm not knocking their talent, but it's just they've been able to kind of get through without being really tested until they had to be.
No, I mean, like I always say to you, you can't help who you have to play.
No, not at all.
It's definitely when you see how how stinky the Dolphins are this year, and that the Bills are still going to have to hold up under some stiff competition, and the Jets have played a little bit better, but they still look like a pretty bad team. I mean, the division crown is always kind of almost a given with New England, and then it's just kind of like they can start preparing for the postseason at any time that they want, and a lot of teams don't have that. Have that advantage. And
I was going to say, stick them in like the AFC North or the NFC South, where it's like a dogfight.
Yeah, I mean, if you put them in some of those kind of positions, they would have a lot more tougher decisions to make with personnel and with changing scheme and stuff like that. But like the way it is now, it's like with the Brady suspension. It was like, all right, well, no big deal. And I mean, if anything, it's almost like he benefited from the extra rest at his age.
Yeah.
In some divisions that would have been a death blow to not
absolutely.
Have a starting quarterback of his caliber, to have him going for the, but, in that division, it was like, well, thanks for the 4 weeks of extra, rest and rejuvenation. Yeah.
All right, moving on, we had the Jets hanging on and beating the Browns 17-14.
Speaking of the Jets, this was one of those games for the Browns that I think I labeled, if you're going to win, you might want to think about doing it this week or else. But but I watched some footage of the game, and I mean, they threw an interception in the red zone in the first half. They had this high school option run in the red zone where Kaiser flipped it to Crowell and he fumbled the pitch, and they had a whole bunch of really bad miscues. I think they had 2 missed field goals in the first half, so they had like a game's worth of miscues in the first half alone. So yes, they play hard, but they're still playing extremely sloppy, extremely inconsistent football. And, they do lead the league in turnovers. So it just kind of, and they actually scored that last touchdown with, I think, under 2 minutes left in the game. So it really wasn't a very close game. And actually the Jets didn't play very well either. McCown threw a pretty bad interception in that game. And there was also a fumble lost by one of the running backs. I think I forget which one, but
Powell.
This is that. Thank you. So there's just a slop fest that the Jets just eventually came out on top of. But, the Browns, we know that it's a systemic problem with them, and that it's a shame because, who I feel sorry for? Duke Johnson. He caught a screen pass and made a really nice 40-yard touchdown off of it. And there's a guy who I would love to see go somewhere else and flourish with another team, because I think he's been loyal enough to the Browns, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But this is just a situation where, you don't really it kind of gets to the point where the Browns belong on that TV show Unsolved Mysteries, like many different quarterbacks, many different coaches, a passionate fan base, an ownership that at least seems to be interested in winning, although sometimes I have my doubt about that. But it's so many high draft picks. Myles Jarrett came out and had 2 sacks yesterday, so that was good. But really, though, and it's kind of ironic because the Browns could have, the 1 year the Browns decided not to draft high on a quarterback, I'm wondering if maybe they should have, but only time will tell. I don't know what you think about that, though.
No, I agree. And this is a very good point. Lance said, who'd have ever thought we would say the Jets would have more wins than the Giants right now?
Yeah, it's actually shocking and disturbing, Lance. And I see a Jets team that is really putting forth a strong effort, particularly on the defensive line. And I see players that are playing over their heads a little bit. In other words, I see players that are playing a little bit harder than their actual talent level. And I think the Giants are sort of the antithesis of that. I see in many cases talented players who are playing beneath that, the Giants have had some bad luck with some injuries and stuff, and they've never really put together a good offensive line or a good running game. But look at all the teams throughout the league who are having the same kind of issues and yet are finding ways to crank out wins. I mean, everybody's going through this. It's just that we tend to pine more on the teams that struggle with their problems. I think the teams that have these problems and win should get a lot more attention in sports media, because there are teams with multiple injuries and with all kinds of fluxes in their coaching staffs who are doing very well. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that, because it's not just crappy teams like the Giants, that go through this kind of stuff.
No, I agree with you. All right, next we have the Panthers hanging on to beat the Lions 27-24.
Yeah, so in watching the footage of this game, the Panthers pass rush, got to Matt Stafford really well. They had a chance to actually make the game 30-10, but Godot missed a field goal, which ended up making the game a lot more interesting than it probably had to be. They kind of let the foot off the gas and let Detroit get close before they sealed the deal with a possession drive at the end of the game. But I noticed that Cam Newton is looking a lot more confident throwing the football now. The offensive line is protecting him very well. Both Cafferty and Stewart seem to be producing. And while Carolina's secondary still seems, rather iffy, I think they're still getting, pretty good productivity out of the front seven. They have some very similar offensive and defensive stats to the Philadelphia Eagles, which we'll probably talk about more later when we talk about their matchup coming Thursday night. But yeah, Detroit just kind of got it together a little bit too late. And, in the early phases of the game, Stafford was really getting pressured a lot, getting overwhelmed. He just couldn't he was really looking for some deep developing patterns, and Carolina's pass rush just was not having any of it.
Right. Well, you don't like to let the Lions hang around because they can burn you.
Well, that's their favorite. That's their thing. That's their thing. Late last year when they broke the record for comeback wins, and actually early in the game, it seemed like some of their best success was running the ball with Abdullah, which might be a little bit surprising. But I think that they were doing some misdirection things and running him out of some spread sets. But Yeah, the thing that the Lions had better keep in mind, and that they could, learn a lesson from some other teams like the Raiders, for example, who are struggling right now, is you can only fall behind by 2 touchdowns so many times and keep coming back and winning. That's my concern with them. The only thing I like better about the Lions now is that they have a much more ball hawking, turnover creating defense, and a much better, defensive line that mixes up, where they line the guys up and where the guys, what angles the guys are rushing from and stuff like that. But they should really be careful about not falling behind every week, because that gets really tiresome.
No, I agree with you. All right. Next, we have the Colts besting the 49ers 26-23 in overtime.
It'll probably shock you and anybody listening to this if I were to tell you that the highlight reel to this game can probably contain the best collection of great throws and catches of any game of Week 5.
Huh.
I was really amazed at some of the great throws that both Brian Hoyer, but actually particularly Brissett, were making down the field, and especially Brissett. He was really making some of those deep outside throws that you always say that a quarterback has to be able to make, those deep outside throws to be able to survive as an NFL quarterback. Like, all the great ones like Manning and Aikman had to be able to make those deep outside throws. He was throwing some beauties on the outside and on the run, and Hoyer was really making some nice down the field throws too. So what this ended up being was a really exciting game up and down the ball field, and a game that the Colts actually led by 2 touchdowns with about 8 minutes ago, and then Hoyer just came right back with some big plays down the field. The only thing, though, the one big problem I saw with Brissett was, and I believe this was an overtime, he actually, on the opening overtime drive, he threw an interception in the red zone when, they could have conceivably have won the game right there.
Yeah.
He threw a pick in the end zone to one of your favorite linebackers, Ray Armstrong, because one Ray is never enough.
Nope.
And so San Francisco ended up getting the ball before, I believe they were forced to punt. But other than that, I think that this Brissett kid is going to have a job someday as an NFL quarterback. I really like the way he throws the football. And, of course, mobility is always a plus in this day and age for a quarterback. But, yeah, I feel so doggone bad for San Francisco, because they are really playing their butts off. They just can't seem to get over the hump week after week.
Yeah, they're right into it. It's funny. Lance just said the same thing right before you did, that he thinks Brissett could be the real deal.
Yeah, I just looked at the throws that he can make, those deep outside throws, and also some of those throws on the run that he can make, towards the sideline, and he can do it from the pocket too. And I just like he's just got that chill about him. Like, he just does not have that panicky, happy feel about him. He's kind of got that Joe Cool feel about him, and he seems to have a good grasp of what's going on. He doesn't seem confused. He doesn't seem lost, and I don't know where it's going to be, but I definitely think he could be an NFL quarterback. One thing that might be noteworthy for fantasy owners is that Carlos Hyde was benched for much of this game in order for in favor of San Francisco's backup running back. Hyde only finished up with 8 carries for 11 yards. So I thought that was surprising, especially since Hyde was, at one point earlier this year was the leading rusher in the NFL. But apparently the head coach of the 49ers really likes this kid that they drafted. I can't think of his name. It starts with a B, but they really like this backup running back they have, and he ended up getting like 5 yards a carry. So his explanation was, Kyle Shanahan's explanation was, I just went with the hot hand, but apparently Hyde wasn't too thrilled about it.
I can imagine so.
I don't think it's going to play into their offensive game plan too much down the road, and I think Hyde will be a grown-up about it. I don't think it's going to turn into anything ugly.
Breida, Breida?
Breida, I think they pronounce it. Yes.
Yeah.
And he was the guy that kind of came in, and for whatever reason, he just seemed to be producing, and so Shanahan decided to ride him a little bit more. And Hyde was only like getting 1.5 yards a carry. So they also took out Navarro Bowman for a large number of snaps, and his substitute ended up, I believe, playing more snaps than he did. So Bowman was also kind of befuddled, and he was like, "Well, I'm a team player, but obviously I don't like being on the bench." So don't really know what that was about. I wouldn't say that it had any effect on the game or anything, but just wondering what Kyle Shanahan's thought process is, and maybe we, down as in the coming weeks, we should take a look at that and see if he continues to do that. A, and B, if it becomes any kind of issue in the locker room there, especially if they continue to lose, if things get a little bit ugly.
Right. All right, next we have the Dolphins hanging on and beating Tennessee 16-10.
Yeah, this is one of the games where I almost hope you'll forget and leave it off the list and not force me to talk about it.
Well, we'll make it quick then.
Yeah, because basically, Cutler just looked disinterested and threw a really crummy pick. Trying to hit the tight end Fasano, and Castle did a pretty good job. I mean, he didn't throw any interceptions, but he got sacked about 4 times, including a really rough toss out of bounds by Ndamukong Suh, who did not get flagged on the play actually. But I just think that it's a shame that Miami got got romanced by Cutler's arm, because their defense has actually played not too bad this year, and they have one of the top, I believe, 5 or 6 third down defenses in the league with guys like Kiko Alonso. You have to say that with the Baltimore accent, but I feel really bad. They have Ajayi and they have some skilled guys at the running back position.
They're just short at the leadership position, the quarterback.
Either he is a master of the Stoic philosophy, or he is just one of these guys. He just, Cutler just does not look interested in what he's doing. He just totally does not look passionate about playing football at all.
No, I agree. All right, moving on. We have the Bengals hanging on in a hard-hitting affair against the Bills, 20-16.
Boy, was it. And you know what I saw when I watched that the highlights of this? A.J. Green was actually responsible for 3 turnovers in this game. He actually let 2 very catchable passes bounce off his hands and get intercepted, as if Andy Dalton needs any help with that. And he was also running down the field after a reception and got decked and fumbled, and the Bills got a turnover off of that. So I was like, wow, how about that? A.J. Green taking the turnover load off of Andy Dalton for once.
I think this is where the Bills take the turn, because they lost Charles Clay. He, I didn't tell you this, or if you saw this, he had to get some kind of procedure done on his knee. I think he tore MCL, one of the smaller ligaments. He's out for at least a month.
Okay.
So it's basically the LaShawn McCoy show on offense.
Yeah, I noticed his backup was this kid named O'Leary, backup tight end, and he called Charles Clay will be sorely missed.
Because he was the only weapon they had.
Yeah, I was going to say the wide receivers that, how, Miami back in the 80s, or in the 70s, they had the no-name defense. Yeah, they have the no-name wide receiving core. I mean, what do we always say? When your tight end and or your running back are your best passing options, that's usually not a good sign.
Not at all.
Yeah, so, but I thought the Bills, went in there and they really gutted it out. They really played hard, and they did not make a lot of mistakes. I mean, really, Cincinnati turned it over more. But I noticed that Geno Atkins and Michael Johnson, who are very good, linemen, they did get. They did collapse the pocket on Tyrod Taylor. I almost felt like someone was telling Tyrod Taylor, like telling him stay in the pocket more, because I almost felt like if he had taken off a little bit more, some of those negative plays would not have happened. But I almost felt like, he was being like coached up to stay in the pocket a lot. But at any rate, he stayed in the pocket, and that's the price when you pay when you have a good interior rush. Some of those pass plays, they just got blown up right in his face. There wasn't much he could do about it.
Right. All right. Next, we have the Chargers getting their first win against the New York Football Giants, 27-22.
Yeah, geez. The Giants, I mean, Melvin Gordon had a good game. But really, this is just all about how bad the New York Giants are. And
I got to tell you this, not to cut you off.
No, please. I want to hear from you.
Anybody in the chat can agree or disagree. I don't think I've ever seen a game where I've seen, I think it was It was either 3 or 4 positional players from the same position, like a wide receiver, all get like weird season-ending injuries in one game.
Yeah, I mean, while we're talking about other stuff, hopefully some guys that are listening in on the chat, maybe they'll comment on that. But it was like, it was like you had your quarterback. He got injured pretty. I know Manning. He got beat up pretty bad, and obviously OBJ and the punt returner / receiver. He got injured badly. But the other thing too is that you still see like there was a play where like Eli Manning dropped back and he threw the pass and he just like whiffed, like the ball just slipped out of his hand, and I mean, it's or like there were some other running plays where like the offensive lineman just like ran past the guy he was supposed to block, and it's like, this stuff doesn't have anything to do with people getting injured. Like these kind of fundamentals, they don't have anything to do with it. And when you think about it, you think about the Chargers come in, and they were also winless. And I mean, they're suffering from the same kind of stuff. Like Phillip Rivers was still calling out signals, and he had a snap hit him in the leg, and he ended up having to knock it out of the end zone for a safety. And then he also threw a really ugly pick in the end zone when they were driving to score. So you do all this on the road, and somehow still you manage to end up winning a road game clear across the country, in the 1:00 time zone. So this gives you an idea of just how, and I know that was a heavy emotional blow for them to lose Beckham and all those other guys. And I know that Manning got beat up, but again, it speaks to much larger things than this of, I don't think either one of these teams is good. They're both two of the sloppiest football teams in the NFL, but the Giants have just taken ineptitude and poor execution and poor preparation to a whole new level. Yep. And I'm sorry about Beckham, sorry about Dwayne Harris. I like Dwayne Harris. Sorry if Manning's banged up. I have a great deal of respect for him, but they've had years to address this offensive line, to acquire a running back that can give them 4.5 yards a carry. I mean, they've had years to address a lot of this stuff, and
they haven't done it.
Nothing. And the guys that they do have, they are not being well coached. They are not improving. They are not being taught. They are not learning fundamentals. Mm-hmm. And it's just a debacle. I mean, I'm really sorry. I cannot lay this at the feet of injuries. And rarely will I do that, because I just don't accept it.
Right. All right. Moving on. This game is one of the 2 shockers of the week for me. And Dean, I don't know if you're still in here. We're getting to it. is Jacksonville going into Pittsburgh and, man, just putting the wood to them 30-9.
Yeah, so we might need a couple extra minutes on this game because this was really nuts. But this is the worst, I believe, the worst home loss in the Tomlin era, or at least in like 11 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And certainly in 11 years for Big Ben as well. Now, first of all, let's say that Jacksonville did two things very well. They smashed them in the face, and they ran their ball down the throat beautifully. And the other thing that they did was that they basically, they had four. They had defensive line was extremely disruptive and stout, and they dropped 7 guys back a lot. And they basically said, "Okay, if you think you can pass through this," so they were basically daring the Steelers, be patient. Run Bell 30 times today, and the Steelers wouldn't bite, and they faced a lot of second and longs, third and longs. So they were not patient enough, or maybe they lost confidence in to keep running it with the continuity that the Jaguars were running it with. So before we even get to the 5 picks and all the other stuff in the after game comments, let's acknowledge that first, that Jacksonville's game plan, was not only was it well conceived, but it was superbly executed.
Yeah.
And so what do you have to say about the interceptions? What is your opinion about the interceptions? Did you look at them? Did you watch the interception? What do you think?
And we talked about this after the game. That game was over Sunday. I thought 2 of them were not Ben's fault. They were tipped balls. 2 of them, another 2 of them were really bad throws that he shouldn't have thrown.
Right.
And Steelers fans, you can get angry or not. Ben seems to do that more often than not, make ill-advised throws more as his career has gone on. And the last one was when they were down, I believe, 2 scores trying to come back. So I can't really be mad at them. Yeah,
we largely agree. I think you and I agreed largely in that 2 of those throws were in the what the hell were you looking at category?
Yeah.
What did, like, almost like the guy was wearing camouflage and he just threw right into the guy's hands. The one near the end of the game, you're down 23-9 and there's like 2.5 or 3.5 minutes left. I understand. You got to try to make plays. You can't play conservative, safe football. At some point, you got to put one up and try to get in the end zone. That's fine. And the other 2 were kind of thrown into like the kind of coverage where it's not a great throw and it's not a terrible throw, but you just need your guy to make the better play. And on both of those throws, the defender from Jacksonville, the young corner Ramsey was at least one of them. Made, I think the other one was Telvin Smith, made the better play on the ball. Either guy could have caught the ball. The Jacksonville defender attacked the ball and got the interception. So it's the 5 interceptions is like a big sexy headline for the game. But I think that there's like a much bigger story to be told than, just, Ben throws 5 picks, Steelers lose by 21. But the post-game comments, I know everybody has something to say about that, and I wanted to get your opinion on that before I said what I had to say real quick.
I don't want to say it looked like Ben had given up, but it's like he's searching for answers and he doesn't know what they are.
Yeah, I have since we went round and round about it yesterday, I've since read that he may have somewhat said it sarcastically to sort of like
deflect,
get the reporters to back off a little bit, well, let me say it so that you don't say it type of thing. Like, okay, maybe I just suck. That way you won't say I suck.
Yeah.
But I think, really, I think it was sort of said in that heat of befuddlement and like, wow, I can't believe that game just went down like that. I played really badly, and I'm really like discouraged, and I'm also like kind of searching for answers. I'm going to have to look at the film and see like what the hell happened, because I don't even understand how we got our butts kicked so bad. But I would never, ever, ever, ever say that, that Ben had like quit, or that he wasn't trying, or that, he was just doing a Cutler and randomly throwing it up for grabs without really paying attention. No, I would never, ever say that. Yes, he does make some very cavalier throws and make some errant throws at times, but no, but Jacksonville's defensive game plan, they got Pittsburgh to do what they wanted them to do, and it just ended up Pittsburgh became unraveled from there. So I can't wait to see, I can't wait to see how they respond. I don't know if they play Kansas City next or the week after, but
I'll have to look at the schedule when we're picking games.
I would like to think that they would take some of that rage from this past Sunday out on the Chiefs.
Dean in our chat, who's the Steelers fan, he said, fire Todd Haley.
Yeah. He's always the guy we like to kick around a little bit when things don't go well with the Steelers offense. Yeah, we're not Todd Haley fans.
I know, I sure as hell am not.
No, he I'm surprised that's lasted this long, to be honest with you.
Oh, he says the Chiefs game is this Sunday.
Well, see, a lot of people might say, "Oh boy, that's not a good team to bounce back against," but I kind of want them to be angry and fresh off this embarrassment.
I will tell you this, and I know Dean will remember this. I don't know if you do. When the Eagles beat the snot out of the Steelers last year, who is the team they played the following week?
Oh, yeah. You got a point there.
Kansas City, and they beat the snot out of them on Sunday night.
Yes, they did.
I'll never forget that, because it was over by halftime.
Well, was that the night they went and they put up 40-something on them?
Yes.
43-14?
Yeah, something like that. But they were
thinking about the right game?
They were pissed off.
If I'm thinking about the right game, yeah. I'm thinking about a 43-14 or 43-16 game.
Either way, it was over by the half.
Yeah, I would love to see that again.
All right. Well,
they'll be back. They'll be back. They're too good and too proud to be stopped by one game. They'll be back.
Oh no, I agree. All right, Now the other shocking game to me, not by who won, but by the score of the game, is the Philadelphia Eagles pummeling Arizona 34-7.
Yeah, what the hell, man? I mean, I know you had said they would win by more than one score, I think, and I had said, I don't know, this could be troublesome.
Yeah, I had the feeling that they were going to win by like 10, and never did I ever expect that.
Yeah, well, I think that I have to kind of see. I've come to two conclusions based off Sunday's game and based on some other stuff that I've seen from some play from Arizona, especially like their loss to Dallas, which is two things. Number one, their offensive line is worse than I thought it was, and number two, that they really prepared. And with good reason. I mean, they prepared utterly and totally with that offense to be built around David Johnson.
Yep.
And when
he
went
got
down,
hurt, they're like, "What do we do?"
Oh my God, what do we do? Let's just play arena football. I don't know. Forget it. It's like they're just totally shell shocked by and traumatized by the loss of him. They have not figured out what they're going to do to make up for that, to compensate for that, if you even can. And I of course, obviously, this Peterson move goes some ways towards doing that, but Peterson is not anything the type of back. Yeah, he I mean, he doesn't catch the ball like Johnson at all, for one thing. But yeah, they're going to try to. This is the beginnings of trying to fix it, because obviously what they've done so far has not worked. But gosh, I was stunned. But the Eagles are one of the right now. They're one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. You can't pretend that they're not right now.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
And there, some of the stuff that we were talking about in terms of them being, so good on third down and so good running the ball and against the run. I mean, I don't know what the heck's going to happen the last 2/3 of the season, but they are really putting together some good fundamental patterns for winning a lot of football games. So, they have some very meaningful challenges coming up, but I want to see, what they do, like without Sproles. And, I'm thinking that they're going to have to lean on Blunt a lot, and what teams are going to have, now that teams are going to know that, and they're going to be able to prepare basically mainly for Blunt, how that's going to change things. But, the Eagles are executing at a very high level in the down the field passing game. And I think Peterson, I got to give Peterson credit. He's creating matchups that make Carson Wentz look really golden right now.
Yep.
So, what do you think? Do you see that too? Like, did you notice that, like, Carson Wentz ends up with a lot of matchups, like with Torrey Holt streaking down, 50 yards across the field? Nobody's going to cover that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying Carson Wentz is playing great ball, but Peterson is really setting him up to succeed. And I'm waiting for them to come up against, Thursday night. Thursday night is what I'm looking for.
The litmus test.
Yeah, to see, like, okay, this defense is not going to let guys streak down the field and have him holding the ball for, 4 or 5 seconds or,
whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that those opportunities are going to be a little bit different. I don't think he's going to get as many of those kind of matchups. And even if they do, they'll pay a physical price for it. So Thursday night's a good litmus. You're right.
All right, moving on. We had Seattle hanging on to beat the Rams 16-10.
Yeah, this is another one of these great physical, NFC Pacific, slugfests. Where the thing that I did not notice about this game was that on the third down play, right before the fourth down incompletion that ended the game, Goff actually hit Cooper Kupp in the end zone, and he actually pretty much dropped it. That would have pretty much tied the game, and they would have won it with the extra point. The fourth down play, that was not open at all. That was kind of like just a desperation throw. But the previous play, Kupp drops a touchdown, and that's kind of like, they'll learn from that. But I love to watch these NFC West, games. Any game between two NFC West always seems to be like a bloodbath. I know you like them.
Absolutely. Like with Gurley and going up against that front. That's always fun.
Are you as surprised by Goff's development as I am?
Yeah, it's like shocking.
I really thought like he was.
I thought he was a bust.
I thought he was on the train to Busville. Yeah, I thought he'd be breaking into houses with Ryan Leaf in about 6 months.
Oh my God.
That's awful. Ryan Leaf, you're fighting the fine fight, and good for you, buddy. But yeah, I thought that he showed no signs of looking like what the hell he was doing on the NFL football field. Just goes to show you what being in the right situation and having the right teachers can do for you.
No, that's right. All right, next we have the Ravens going into Oakland and beating the Raiders 30-17.
All right, I want to make a very important
public service announcement.
Yes, it's painful, but I need to warn others so that they don't suffer the same fate. But no, there's a very important observation to be made about this game because I know that the Raiders defense is getting a lot of flack for really being bad. And so in talking about the game, the Ravens did get the ball and go right down the field and go up 7-0. Not good. Okay. And the Raiders have been really bad on defense in opening drives this year. Then Raiders first possession, Jared Cook catches a pass, Jared fumbles, and before you can blink, it's 14-0. So from there, I want to move ahead a little bit, and I wanted to get to where at about 12 minutes to go in the second half, the Ravens go up by a score of 21-3. I want you to think about that for a minute. It's 21-3 with 12 minutes to go in the first half. You follow me?
Yes.
That means that for the next 42 minutes of game, that the Raiders actually outscored the Ravens 14-9 and did not give up another touchdown. Now, it is true that the Ravens on that final drive, they did run the ball right over them. I mean, they trampled them and they held the ball and kicked that last field goal. This is true, but I do think that some of the negative attention has to be taken away from the Raiders defense and focused on the Raiders offense, which really is where all the expectation was put prior to the start of the year. And yeah, that's with or without Derek Carr, because nothing about what happened yesterday has anything to do with Derek Carr not being on the field.
Yep, it's as simple as that.
I mean, did E.J. Manuel have a wonderful game? No. Did he do anything to really put them in a bad, no. I mean, he didn't throw any pick sixes. He didn't have any strip sacks. He didn't, he didn't make any of those horrible mistakes that you're always afraid that a backup quarterback. But let's not forget too, buddy, that these offensive problems, these problems started before Derek Carr got hurt.
Oh yeah.
These problems with Amari Cooper and these problems with Lynch, barely getting 4 yards a carry, and these problems with the drops, and these problems with Jared Cook not showing up, who probably did not catch 3 other balls that he should have caught in addition to that fumble yesterday. In addition to the offensive line, making mistakes in communication, not run blocking well, not pass blocking well. I think Manuel got sacked 3 or 4 times, and he's pretty mobile. He's pretty mobile. The defense did not have a sack. They did not have an interception. They did not force a fumble. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, but you have to really also look at where the expectation is, and where the expectation is that this offense is supposed to be explosive. It's supposed to be very talented. And, Derek Carr, missing a part of one game and another game does not explain why this team is 2-3.
Yeah.
You cannot continue.
Let's face it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
I know Dean is not a fan of the Ravens. He calls them the shitbirds.
Of course.
But when I watch them, their offense is putrid, and that's being kind. Absolutely,
it is, absolutely. But when you talk about coaching and what we were talking about before, look at them. What do they got? 19 guys on injured reserve.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of guys.
I mean, and look, they don't have Yonda, so and I think they got another offensive lineman. So they don't have their normal offensive line. They don't have, what is it? Macklin. Look at their wideouts.
Yeah, don't get me started.
I know. I mean, look at Mike Wallace had 133 yards on 3 catches yesterday. It's just, it's inexcusable. But yeah, what I'm saying is, they pristinely protected. Joe Flacco did not get sacked yesterday, and Joe Flacco is not, fleet of foot.
No.
And yet he did not get sacked. He also makes some bad throws under duress occasionally. He did not get intercepted. Yeah. He's got that big wide arm delivery. He sometimes get the ball knocked loose. The ball did not get loose. They controlled Khalil Mack extremely well. So they go on the road and get a very important road win on the West Coast. And this is what I'm talking about when I say, forget about injuries, forget about talent levels. This is when coaching matters, and this is when, making lemonade out of your lemons really matters. And I have to say, John Harbaugh, I know you wish he had stayed a part of your organization, and I would have been more than happy to have him come out west and be a part of mine. But I'm saying, and I wanted to say to you too that I'm really starting to think that Jack Del Rio has to be looked at much harder for what's starting to happen here, because this guy played linebacker for USC, played defense in the NFL, was a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And what's going on with this defense? 3 years now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't understand what's going on here. This guy Norton's been here. And Jack Del Rio, he's a great rah-rah guy. I'll give him that. But some of that play calling yesterday, they were within 24-17 at one point, and they come out, and some of this play calling is so horrible. Look on YouTube at the first couple drives to begin the third quarter for Oakland, and you will see. You'll be asking yourself, wait a minute, I thought they fired Bill Musgrave. Some of the most putrid offensive play. And all it did was, of course, that last drive for the Ravens, they ran over Oakland's defense because that defense was tired. So many 3-and-outs.
Yep.
And Oakland was in striking distance at this point. It's absolutely now poor Derek Carr, all he has to do next week is come back and beat the Chargers and save his team's season with a broken back. That's all he has to do.
Oh, no big deal.
Yeah, just part the Red Sea, would you please?
All right, let's move on.
I'm done. Sorry.
Now we have, in my opinion, the game of the week. Aaron Rodgers doing it again in Texas, beating the Cowboys 35-31.
If for no other reason, you should have a portrait of Aaron Rodgers on your living room wall because of how he has dominated that matchup. No other reason. He should be in your wall of fame for how he has, how many times he has crushed the hopes and passions of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Prescott, I got to give Prescott credit because he'll keep swinging. He's trying to change the culture down there.
Oh yeah, I mean there's no problem. There's no problem with Dak Prescott that I can see at all. I don't think he makes very few bad throws for a young player. He protects the football. He seems to progress through his reads very well. He has a good judgment of when to stay in the pocket, when to leave it. When he leaves the pocket, he's still looking downfield. Yeah, he does a lot of good stuff. I mean, they're big. Obviously, everybody knows that their big question mark is that defense, and I guess particularly the secondary, which to me really isn't that terrible. So I'm not sure. Like I like Jones, and I like that other young kid they got, that 27 that made some nice plays, but for some reason Dallas's defense never has everybody playing well at the same time. Like when their pass rush is playing well, their secondary seems to lay off. When the secondary is playing well, the pass rush doesn't seem to get to the quarterback. It never seems like they're all kind of like, playing, in a vacuum together. All kinds of just seems like they're all kind of like doing their own thing. I know that Sean Lee being gone hurts, but Hitchens came back, and that should have helped, and it did. But I know a lot of people are saying that they left too much time on the clock for
Joe Cool, as
Rodgers.
I call him.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean,
you're in a tough situation because we talked about this. You score when you can score.
Yeah, the only thing I might have done differently is the play before the touchdown play. I don't know that I would have thrown that tough pass that was not completed in the end zone. The play right before Prescott ran it in.
Yeah.
I don't, because that was a free timeout. basically.
Oh, yeah.
And then when Prescott ran it in, then they still have, I think, a little over a minute to get it. Because if they had just run it there, then Green Bay absolutely would have had to use their final timeout right there.
Yep.
But, you're right. The continuity of the game, you don't know what they would have done on third down if they had run the first 2 times. They might not have played. They might not have called that Prescott run either. So, yeah, it's easy to second guess these things. Really, even with a minute, a little over a minute and 1 timeout, they should have been able to keep them out of the end zone.
Yeah, I agree.
A decent defense should be able to do that. Now, field goal,
different story.
That's a lot. That's 35 less yards you have to worry about. But, yeah, I think a decent defense should be able to keep a team out of the end zone in a minute with 1 timeout.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have the Sunday night game where the Chiefs beat the Texans 42-34.
Well, obviously, I guess the big story is losing Watt, losing Merciless, which I'm so frustrated with the big name players getting hurt. So I don't want to make it all about that. But I'll tell you what I would like to talk about for my part would be how Deshaun Watson is really grasping his team's offense.
He's really coming into his own.
And how he really seems to have developed a good rapport with his receivers.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That 1 touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins was absolutely a thing of beauty. I don't care what the score was or how much time was left in the game. That was a work of art. And the rapport that he's developing with Fuller and with DeAndre Hopkins, I thought that he would be a scrambler. Like I was keeping my eye on him to just take off and run a whole lot. He doesn't do that a whole lot.
No, not at all.
So, I just think that we kind of have to bounce back a little bit to what happened with the multiple injuries last night, because you could kind of feel the air go out of that stadium when those 2 guys were taken off the field.
That sucked the whole team down.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take away anything from Kansas City because they can score points in a hurry in so many different ways. And one thing that I really think is excellent about the Chiefs' offense is they talk a lot about their gimmicky plays and their jet sweeps and their passing game, but they have a really excellent misdirection and running attack where they'll make the team think they're running the ball. And I'm not talking about with the reverse action or anything like that. I'm just talking about they line up and they have the offense think they're running right and they run back left. And they have done that to pretty much every team they have played this year. And that is something that is so good to be able to do when you're trying to keep a lead. However, I will say that despite the injuries to the Texans, despite the fact that that game was as good as over, the Texans really fought to get back in that game.
Yeah, I've told my good friend who is a Texans fan that they were always a competent quarterback play away from being a legitimate contender.
It just makes you wonder now, because this has happened so many times to the Texans and to Bill O'Brien, who I'm starting to think is a saint because of what he's been able to endure with his injuries. But it just makes you wonder how many more times they can keep doing this, how many more times they can keep up this defensive excellence with the centerpieces that keep getting knocked out. You would think it would be easier with having such, finally a seeming to have the quarterback that can put up 30 points for them when they need it.
Yeah.
But it's also almost like they're not used to having that. So is that going to have to be a little bit of a change in thinking for them? Are they going to have to be like, okay, let's not try to
let's do
things.
plan B.
all right, let's not try to overthink things on defense. So it might be a little bit of an adjustment for them,
Yeah.
to say, well, okay, well, let's not like try to scheme ourselves into oblivion defensively. Let's just keep it simple and play hard and attack the ball and let our offense grow because if this is just happening now and Deshaun Watson is still figuring things out, it's a little bit scary how good he could really be. And I know defenses will get some film on him and adjust to him, but he looks awfully comfortable right now. And Andy Reid is pretty good at making young quarterbacks look amateurish.
No,
and Deshaun Watson did not look harried or harassed or bothered last night.
Nope. All right, and the final game of the week, which you could potentially say was the most exciting Monday Night Football game to date, the Vikings beating the Bears 20-17.
Yeah, you know what? It was a really good game, and I'm glad I stuck with it because well through the first quarter and into the second, I'm sitting there looking at the score and saying, wait a minute, am I watching the American League Division Series? It's 3-2, Not the football score is this, but it was a good game. And the Bears defense, I think is a lot better. I think they're worthy of watching if you like to watch defense. And I actually found out that they have the highest percentage of 3-and-outs of any defense in football, 43% of the time. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think they're in the top 5 or 8 in yards allowed.
Yeah, and so I think and they did draft a couple guys, like that one defensive end, Little, I think his name, and everybody was saying, oh, he's too light and thin to set the edge, and that guy plays. He plays pretty stiff. I mean, he's harsh. So I think they made a good play with him. I like their defense. I really do, and I love the tandem of Howard and Cohen. Cohen did not have a very good game. He didn't have a very productive game last night. Howard was decent. Trubisky, he played a typical rookie game. I mean, had a low completion percentage. Did not hurt them early. He had a couple of really beautiful throws called back by penalties. Which sucked because they were probably going to march down the field and score a touchdown the first time the Bears possessed the ball, and they just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly and ended up kicking the ball. Bradford looked like he was playing hurt, and the best thing that Minnesota could have done was pull him. As soon as Keenum came in, you could see the change in Minnesota's offense because Bradford looked like he was not mobile at all. He looked like he was in pain. He was kind of floating the ball. He didn't have that laser delivery he usually has. Keenum came in there. He was sharp, decisive, and right away you could see, Minnesota's, offense clicking. But those two defenses, both of those teams have postseason defenses. So I think it's going to be that NFC Norris division, as we used to like to call it, it's going to be fun to see how that unfolds. There's four fun teams in that division. They're all going to be beating up on each other. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Now, before we get out of here, we're going to pick this coming week's games. And to start it off, we got a really good one for Thursday night. We have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling down to play Carolina.
Oh, God. Number 1 and 2 in converting third downs offensively. Two teams that can really get some big plays, passing the ball down the field.
I believe you said 1 and 2 in time of possession as well.
That's the other thing that they're 1 and 2 in. Thank you. Number 1 and 2 in time of possession. So as you said, something's got to give. But this.
Hang on a second, you guys. Hello?
Third down defense a little bit better. So I'm actually.
Huh.
Your thoughts?
You were cutting in and out, so can you say that one more time?
I'm going to give the edge to the Eagles. I like their red zone defense better than Carolina's, and I also like their third down defense better.
I would normally agree with you, but it's a short week, and Lane Johnson has a concussion. The Eagles' right tackle, which I think could be a very big issue. Coming in on a short week because he's probably not going to play. And this is really a pick'em game, but when you have something like that happen, and these teams are, almost mirror images of each other, like very nip and tuck, I will take Carolina. You there, Adam? And we're back. You there, bud?
Yeah, technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. No, I said I'm taking Carolina.
Wow. Okay.
Because I guess you didn't hear it. The live audience did. Because of Lane Johnson potentially not playing with a concussion this week.
Yeah, that's a factor. I can understand that.
And like I said, these teams are like mirror images of each other, and I'll kind of lean towards Carolina for now.
Okay, well, maybe no Stewart or Funches for Carolina, too.
I know.
Okay.
All right, next we have the Bears traveling to Baltimore.
This is strange because I really like the way the Bears played Monday night. But they came up short, and I think usually a Harbaugh gets a win like this on the road. I think the Ravens usually tend to go back home and build off a win like this. So I'm going to take Baltimore.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they'll probably harass Trubisky into making a couple of mistakes, and that'll probably be the difference.
That's a bottom line. Experienced quarterback against inexperience, and a coach that knows how to make those things happen. And so I think that Harbaugh, I think he's going to go back home, and I think he sees this as an opportunity, climb back towards 500 and get back in the mix. So I definitely like Baltimore too.
Here's a good one: Green Bay traveling to Minnesota.
I'll tell you what. I like the completeness that Green Bay showed in Dallas. However, I am very fascinated with Mike Zimmer's defenses, and I think that until Sam Bradford is completely, fully healthy, he should not step on the field. And I think Zimmer learned his lesson against the Bears. So I think Minnesota will win this game.
I kind of lean that way too because they've seemed to have bottled up Rodgers, and I don't think Green Bay's defense is good enough to hold the fort.
Yeah, I like Zimmer against Rodgers, and I think Keenum will make some plays against that defense. Bradford, I don't think they'll make that mistake again of trying to force him back.
Yeah. All right. Next we have San Francisco traveling to the Redskins.
As hilarious as it would be if they did.
It's not happening.
Yeah, just for Redskins and for reasons that I think our kind of viewers already all understand without going into details.
All right, next we have Detroit traveling to New Orleans.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been kind of leaning towards New Orleans a little bit, but looking at some of New Orleans' defensive statistics, I think that in the end, I think that they will create enough turnovers and do enough offensively to steal this game on the road. So I'm going to take Detroit.
Okay, I'll go with the Saints because their defense is actually playing pretty good that nobody's really talking about.
And definitely better than a lot of people thought.
Yeah, I'll go with them because they're at home too.
Yeah, I was almost going to agree with you, but then I thought, well, Detroit went into Minnesota and won a tough one, so
that's true.
They're capable of doing that, and I think they will definitely be able to put up more points against this defense. And after almost stealing this one back, I know that they go down there knowing that they really need to win this next one. I'll go with Detroit. But it's crazy when you actually have confidence to pick the Lions in a real game, isn't it?
All right, next we have Miami traveling to Atlanta.
Ryan throws 3 picks. Cutler throws 6. Falcons win.
That says it all right there. Because that's the way the season's been going right now for Matt Ryan.
Yeah, it hasn't looked pretty, but I see no reason to think that offense can't
especially
can't get the job done. Oh yeah.
All right, next we get a layup for the Texans. Cleveland coming into Houston.
Sorry, Browns. This isn't the week. This is not it.
I'm not picking them until they win a game. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you have to prove to me that you even deserve to deserve consideration.
No, absolutely. All right, next we have New England traveling to the Jets.
New England.
Yeah. I think the Jets will give them a fight, but New England will eventually pull away.
Yeah, I think McCown has looked good in a couple of games, but then I went back and looked and I noticed that the teams he looked good against were not very prolific in creating turnovers. I don't think that'll. I mean, granted, New England's defense has suffered, but I think that them matching up against McCown, despite his mobility, I have a feeling that they'll get him to make some mistakes, and that Brady will probably get some good numbers against them.
All right, next we have Tampa Bay traveling out to Arizona.
This is a very difficult one because both of these teams are coming off of games that they're going to feel very disappointed about. I'm going to say that Arizona's defense is going to bounce back, and that the offense is going to play better. I know that Tampa Bay is explosive offensively, and they have a pretty good pass rush as well. I don't think they're quite seasoned to go out there and to win a game. Yeah, I think Arizona's secondary was embarrassed. I think they're going to play a lot better, so I'm going to take Arizona.
I'll take Arizona too because Tampa still seems like they're a young team learning how to win.
Yeah, they don't know how to finish yet.
All right, next we have the LA Rams traveling to Jacksonville.
Oh boy. This is a head scratcher because I don't understand Jacksonville sometimes. But I'll tell you something. The Rams went into Dallas and proved they can win on the road. And as good as Jacksonville's defense has been, let's not forget that Wade Wilson is building up that defense of the Rams. I think that the Rams can go into Jacksonville and beat them up, especially after Jacksonville getting that big win in Pittsburgh, perhaps a slight letdown. I think the Rams can go out there and steal a road win from them.
I will take Jacksonville because I think their defense might just be a little bit better, and because I think they might be able to make Goff make a mistake more than Blake Bortles.
The other thing too is that the Rams' run defense actually is not that great, and if they're patient enough to run it the way they ran it against Pittsburgh, they have a very good chance of winning it that way. Just for some reason, I think I have a feeling that the Rams are going to put up some points on them down the field.
Okay. All right. Next, we have the Chargers traveling to Oakland.
I'm going to admit right now this is a religious pick.
Oh dear God.
Well, I have to believe this is going to happen. I have to believe that Saint Derek will emerge from his broken spine to save the season, and San Diego is still a very mistake-prone football team. I don't like their defense all that much, so I think Oakland can beat them, save the season. San Diego just got their first win. They haven't proven that they can string anything together.
I think Oakland will win. A tough, hard-fought divisional game.
These two teams always go at it. It's always fun, and
it's always close.
It usually gives me a heart attack, but I'll take Oakland. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next we have Pittsburgh going to Kansas City.
As much as I would love to see it, I have to cautiously take Kansas City in this game because the reason being is Pittsburgh just doesn't look like Pittsburgh that we thought they were going to be. They're going on the road after a very disheartening loss. Their defense has played well. Their offensive stars need to show up, and they need that leadership that you and I were talking about that was missing, whether it be Big Ben or, Shazier or somebody. Somebody's got to show some leadership in that locker room. The Chiefs' pass rush, run defense, offense, all things seem to be clicking. Alex Smith is stingy with the ball. He's not turning it over. So I think I have to like Kansas City to win this game until the Steelers start playing to their potential.
I would normally agree with everything you said. However, this game, you could kind of say that the Steelers' season is teetering depending on how this game goes. And
I agree.
Usually, more times than not, when their back is against the wall, they're going to come and knock somebody out. And until they show me they can't, I'm going to take Pittsburgh.
I agree with everything you say, and I want what you say to happen. But if someone were saying, hey, Adam, somebody's got a gun to my head and I have to bet my house on this game.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I can't in good conscience advise people to say that Pittsburgh's going to win. But I hope you're right. I wouldn't mind being wrong on this one.
Yeah, all right. Sunday night, we have, give me a second, we have the Giants traveling to Denver.
Wow, seriously? Yeah, it's not happening for the Giants this week.
That's going to make the ratings go up.
That's going to be an early night for people who have to get up Monday morning.
Yeah, I actually kind of feel bad for the Giants because the Broncos are probably going to beat them up pretty badly.
Oh my gosh, yeah, as if they're not hurt enough. That pass rush. Oh God. Yeah, Denver, as if I have to say it.
And our Monday night game, we have Indianapolis going to Tennessee.
You remember what I said to you when I found out what this game was going to be?
Yes.
I had a little images of you in a robe, smoking a pipe, and like building a ship in a bottle and doing a big jigsaw puzzle, and reading in front of the fireplace. I like the Colts because their offense is really coming together and becoming explosive, and I like that Marlon Mack too as a running back, and their pass rush has shown some life. I know that the Titans have a good defense as well, but with Matt Castle at quarterback, there is a huge handicap on them. So I like the Colts.
Yeah, I don't know the availability of Mariota at the moment, but I agree with you. I'm going to go with the Colts.
if Mariota were to come back, I would probably say this game was more of a push, but. I definitely, if Castle is your starter, I definitely like the Colts. If Mariota were to start, I might give the Titans a prohibitive edge.
All right, two quick things before we get out of here. Lance wants to know who do you think is going to play wide receiver for the Giants? Will Chad Johnson or Terrell Owens come out of retirement?
I think that they will give, I think they should give, I'm trying to think of his name, the guy that played with Phil Simms, Steven Touchdown Maker Baker. I think he's only like 67 years old. He can probably still play. I have no idea, Lance, but they better start making some phone calls and checking waiver wires and Craigslist and see who the heck wants to
the AFL.
Yeah, I really haven't gone online and explored it, Lance, but off the top of my head, I don't have any answers to that question at the moment.
All right, and one other thing, because me and you had talked about this earlier, but Lance asked us to cover it before we hopped off.
Sure.
Our thoughts with the NFL and Goodell trying to change the policy about standing for the anthem?
Well, I mean, it logistically, it's the manual of that they're going to try to put it in, which would be the NFL, basically the operator's manual. If they were to try to make that change, it would require a 24 out of 32 majority owner approval in order for the change to go into effect. Now, I find it. I personally, I try not to inject politics and social issues in this show unless I'm asked. I find it disgusting. I think that the rights that we have are indicative that we should be allowed to do or not do what we choose. In regards to that, I think this is I think this is capitalism rather disguised as patriotism. I think it's disgusting. This could be a whole other show, Lance, so I'll just leave it at there. But logistically, if it happens, I don't know what recourse the players would have because it's not collectively bargained, that manual. It's not part of the player's contract. It's just kind of like the league's manual, like your job's manual when you get a job somewhere. So the recourse issue would be very challenging for them. Now, my next question would be, what would Goodell actually do? Would he actually enforce, and how far would he enforce?
Yep.
If players were to continue, because he can ride the rails. I mean, he can work the borders on this. I mean, he can play both sides on this to some extent. The question is, what does he want to do, and are the players going to push him into a corner, demand that he take sides, or are they going to work with him and say, well, look, I know we all have livelihoods here. We understand that financially we're all being pushed into a corner and that we all have a financial stake here. So that would be my other question, is how far would he really go to enforce this? If they end up doing this, the league had better consult with the players and come up with a program to address the police brutality issues on minorities in this country. I would highly recommend it, that they immediately start addressing it and start doing public service announcements on it. I doubt that they would do it, but I would definitely recommend it, and it would be the right thing to do. But we will see. So that's what I think about it for now. And we could probably do a whole show on this one day if you want to.
Yeah, like Adam said, I normally don't like to mix political and all that types of stuff. However, in my opinion, this changing the policy, in my opinion, I mean, they're an employer. It's well within their rights to do it. However, I think it is probably the most un-American thing you could do, where regardless if you like or dislike a person sitting or kneeling or doing whatever they are, it's well within our rights in our Constitution and so forth to do so. Whether you like it or you don't like it, it is irrelevant. You're allowed to do it under the First Amendment.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more footnote that I think is really, really important. I asked my father about this. He's 95. He protected Hawaii from any chance of, he helped to protect Hawaii from any chance of secondary invasion after Pearl Harbor. And then he went over to the Palau Islands in the South Pacific to help protect, the Philippines and to help protect air bases down there. And his take on it was, and I know that there are many different takes from different people who were in the military and not, but his take on it was, I didn't risk my neck for a song or a flag. I think people should have the right to do or not do or say or not say what they think is right. That's all I have to say about it.
Exactly. That's perfect. Can't say it any better. On that note, we're going to get out of here for tonight. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, give it a thumbs up, all that stuff. We'll see you back next time. Have a good night.